Pleasant Pruitt hailed from a long-established and prosperous Protestant lineage in his Edinburgh hometown. Widely acknowledged for his above-average intellect, he held an esteemed position within society. In his youth, he fell head over heels and swiftly wedded Miss Van Meter of Rushville, resulting in the birth of 4 children: Alice, Leslie, Ethel, and Clyde, all of whom eventually relocated to Indianapolis. The family was viewed as a typical and contented unit, with Pruitt at its helm. In the year 1888, the initial Mrs. Pruitt met an abrupt demise due to poisoning. This occurrence sent shockwaves through the Edinburgh community, yet no finger of suspicion pointed towards Pleasant in the slightest. His outwardly virtuous lifestyle deterred any scrutiny of the incident, leaving the populace to ponder whether the death was merely a tragic accident. The demise of Mrs. Pruitt remained an enigmatic puzzle, allowing Pleasant to persist in his life as a revered and upstanding gentleman. A year or two following her demise, Pleasant crossed paths with and married Naomi Huffman. The Pruitt household appeared to have returned to its former state of contentment, but this respite was short-lived. In 1896, the Edinburgh community was once again thrown into turmoil upon discovering that Pleasant had unintentionally caused his wife's death. The grief-stricken farmer recounted that he had been cleaning and loading his shotgun at the rear of their residence when the firearm discharged accidentally. Tragically, Naomi, who was in the summer kitchen at the time, was struck and fatally injured. This explanation failed to appease the neighbors, who remembered the circumstances surrounding the death of his first wife, and they urged the authorities to launch an official inquiry into the matter. Pruitt was arrested, but due to the absence of a clear motive and the fact that the couple had lived harmoniously, the jury considered the 2 deaths as peculiar coincidences. Consequently, Pleasant was released, although the legal proceedings had depleted a significant portion of his wealth. He embarked on extensive travels, ultimately encountering his future third wife, Winnie Barry, in Iowa City. The couple resided there for several years before relocating to Indianapolis, where they settled on East Ohio Street, alongside Winnie's 14-year-old son from a previous marriage, Jesse. Over time, Pleasant found himself in dire financial straits, prompting his wife's suggestion to convert their residence into a boarding house. The enterprise thrived initially, but Pleasant, who seldom contributed to the workload, gradually sank into melancholy. His deteriorating behavior led to conflicts regarding the house's management, resulting in the departure of some boarders and, consequently, escalating tensions between him and his wife. With his affection for her extinguished, Pleasant secretly devised a plan to end her life. On October 9, 1902, shortly after Jessie had departed for school and amid the recurring arguments, Winnie descended to the basement to attend to a washtub. Allegedly, Pleasant followed her there, reigniting their quarrel. In the heat of the moment, he launched a violent attack on his wife, seizing a nearby knife and inflicting 2 fatal stab wounds to her heart, all the while subjecting her to brutal blows to the face. Winnie's countenance was grotesquely disfigured, her eyes gouged from their sockets. Pruitt initially left the basement, presumably with the intent to flee. For reasons unknown, he returned to the basement armed with a fully loaded .38 Bulldog revolver, ultimately ending his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot to the head, his lifeless body collapsing atop his deceased wife's. Around 4:30 in the afternoon, Jesse Barry returned home from school. As he entered the house, he called out down the hallway to inform his mother of his arrival, but received no response. Perplexed, he ascended the stairs to continue his search. In one of the rooms, a tenant named Nicholas Yeager informed him that his mother had been in the basement since early morning, doing laundry. With this information, Jesse descended to the cellar, calling out for his mother once more before venturing inside. Yet again, there was no reply, and he proceeded down the dimly lit stairs into the basement. After taking just a few steps, he stumbled upon his stepfather's lifeless form. Striking a match for illumination, Jesse discovered that his stepfather's face was covered in blood. Overwhelmed by terror, he rushed up the stairs and hurried to the police station. Along the way, he encountered policemen Morgan and Simon, who followed him to the house on their bicycles. Upon entering the cellar and lighting a match, Officer Morgan swiftly discerned that this was a case of murder-suicide. He returned to the distraught young boy and gently informed him that a grave incident had taken place, prompting young Jesse to express his awareness of the tragic outcome and his hope that they now found peace in heaven. The residents underwent a thorough investigation, and the tenants were questioned, revealing that the constant arguments between the Pruitts were a likely motive for the tragedy. Several weeks later, a lawsuit was initiated by Frank McCrae, the administrator of Winnie's estate, against Othosi, George, the administrator of Pleasance estate. The dispute revolved around the ownership of the properties, as they could not be entrusted to a young man like Jesse. The two parties contested who had resided there longer, the victim or the perpetrator. As of the present, the outcome of this lawsuit remains unknown.